Hi everyone. Well, it's been quite a chilly few days. In fact, the amount of ice that we've seen on the on roads and walkways over the last couple of nights, it really has been quite astonishing actually. And this is mostly due to, in fact, almost completely due to the amount of rainfall that we've had over recent weeks, and culminating into in a big downpour a couple of nights ago with some sleet falling, and that's just led to excessive amounts of runoff water from fields and things like that. And of course this covers across the road, and then it freezes because the temperatures overnight, a couple of nights ago at least, reached down to around -4 and -5, which is slightly colder than what we were expecting. And then last night was pretty much as expected, but it still led to some very icy conditions on some rural roads, such as this here in Ashy this morning. So you can see this is pretty much sheet ice across the road, and all this is just water that has run off from the fields and frozen overnight. So it's quite literally like an ice rink. So it was quite interesting to drive on, to say the least. But yes, so over the coming nights, things will remain rather chilly, and it's down to this area of low pressure out here to the east, and it's bringing in the flow really down from the northwest. Not the coldest direction, but it still brings in some relatively chilly air. So let's have a little look at something a bit different than what we usually show you. So we've got the areas of high and low pressure with the synoptic chart, but we've also got these colours here representing the wind strength very high up in the atmosphere. So we're looking at really at this time of year, it's around 35-40,000 feet. This is the jet stream. So the jet streams is pretty much what it shows here, with just these wind directions and wind strengths that are really strong. So very high up in the atmosphere, very strong wind strengths, and these are wind strengths here. If you can see this, 160, 180 miles per hour, even stronger at times. So and what happens, this area of strong wind pretty much drives these areas of low pressure, and it is the transition between cold air to the north and warmer air to the south. And wherever this boundary sits, well, if you're to the north of it, you're going to see colder air. If you're to the south, you're going to see warmer air. But it's not always quite that clear cut. And then, of course, if you're directly under the jet stream, you tend to see pretty unsettled weather. So let's run it through. And you can see as we run through the next few days, the jet stream is fairly weak. It's showing itself almost over us, really, but it is fairly weak. And so it's not really going to be unsettled. But we're on the cusp of the warm and cold air here as we move in towards the weekend. And then, as you can see, as we move into Sunday and Monday, the jet stream over us pretty much fizzles out, and we see these surges of stronger areas of jet stream moving up across towards north of Iceland and down in towards Scandinavia. But we're on the southern edge of it, so the air is a little bit milder at this point, even though the winds at this point as well are still coming in from the north to northeast. But there is an area of high pressure nearby. Now, at this time of year, high pressure doesn't always mean sunny skies, but it often means colder weather. Now, depending on where the area of high pressure is, you know, that makes a huge difference. So if it's sat right over the UK, like it might be, some of the models are showing this, it would produce stagnant air, and cold air would become trapped at the surface at ground level, and it would be really quite cold, and there'd be also quite a lot of fog as well. But if it moves out to the west, such as the global model is showing, such as this one here, it'd gradually introduce a bit more of a northerly flow, or north to northeasterly down in southern England, which means the air is moving a little bit less stagnant, and it will still be chilly, but of course it won't be foggy because the air will be moving around, and there'll be less in the way of frost as well. So, as I mentioned, with areas of high pressure, you see at least I say less in the way of bad weather, but sometimes a bit of cloud around at this time of year. So let's run it through a little bit closer in here. You can see that we've got some cloud around tonight, or later on tonight, and then into tomorrow the cloud starts to move away to the south, leaving some fairly sunny skies. And then as we move in through tomorrow evening, we see little bits of cloud coming in, but they don't going all the way, so it gives us some clear skies, which will inevitably lead to another frost. And then as we move into Friday evening and into Saturday, we see a bit of a flow coming in from the east here. So the winds are coming in from the north to northeast, and clouds are trying to push their way through, but still it looks like a fairly decent day as we move through into Saturday. And then as we move through into Sunday, the cloud starts to increase somewhat, especially from the west as we get some fronts trying to push in. And by this time, we start to see a lot cloudier conditions. So this is by Monday. And by this time as well, we see these fronts trying to work their way towards us. However, it's very uncertain how far these fronts will reach. So if we go back a few frames, you can see here, this is how quickly they move in through Sunday night and into Monday. And yes, it's quite a difficult one to say, but it seems more likely that these fronts will weaken quite a bit as they approach us. So there won't be much in the way of rain. And then as high pressure develops behind this, it will likely turn very settled with these dry, frosty and potentially foggy conditions. So I won't go too long on this, but we'll just quickly run through the temperatures through the week. And you can see we've got this frost well, this evening and tonight. Not a hard frost, but it's noticeable. And also we've got the wind directions here as well. But you can see towards tomorrow night we have another frost developing. Through Friday we keep hitting these greens and paler blues. It's showing temperatures really 2 to 4 degrees Celsius. And then as we move through Friday evening, we see another frost once again. Perhaps a little bit more intense this frost, so a moderate kind of frost really, mostly towards the mainland, but the island will be seeing these frosty conditions to continue at night. And then as we move through Saturday daytime, it still stays rather chilly, perhaps a little bit warmer out here to the east, you can see here, but we're still seeing these temperatures around 4 degrees Celsius. And then as we move in towards Sunday, we see another quite a hard frost Saturday night and into Sunday morning. And but then after that, the winds change around just for at least for a time into the west-southwest. So that by Monday we've got this much warmer air, and you can see it pushing her up to around 8, maybe 9, 10 degrees Celsius at least for a few days. However, there is one other thing that we should point out, that towards Friday night into Saturday it could get a bit misty, but especially Saturday night and into Sunday morning, with the increased humidity, with the wind starting to come in from the west-southwest, we should start to see the risk of some fog developing. So especially, at least potentially on Sunday morning, we could see some really quite foggy conditions for a time across the island. So yeah, that's something to watch out for in the forecast in the coming days. So let's have a last look at one final thing here, and this is the stratosphere. So you've probably heard a lot in recent days about possible stratospheric warmings and how it's going to cause us to have lots of snow and really cold winds. It's not quite that clear cut, but there is certainly a sign of some, at least a warming element there. So this is showing the temperatures right high up in the atmosphere. At this point here, we're looking at around 85,000 feet up, so it's well above the level in which our normal weather takes place, because our weather really takes place from ground level up into about, at least this time of year, up into about 30 to 35,000 feet at the most. Anything above that, it really becomes, well, not so much weather activity, it's more temperature driven. So we see this cold air here over the pole, which is the stratospheric polar vortex, and we see these areas of high pressure here, if you could call them that, and it's where these slightly warmer conditions often take place. And you can also see here, oops, I don't know if you can do this here, hopefully I can overlay this, but you can see here, just in this area here, is the UK. So what's going to happen over the coming days is that this area of low pressure over the pole starts to shift and wobble because of these frequent little warmings that we're getting. Not a huge warming, but a warming enough to send some warm air into this cold core and disrupt this area of low pressure over the pole. So this is, like I said, at 10 HPA, so this is 85,000 feet up approximately, and you can see this warm air moving in towards the pole, and what this is going to do is start to affect areas lower down. So if we compare this to lower down in the stratosphere, which is a little bit closer to the troposphere, which is where our weather takes place, you can see warmings also take place, but we start to get a bit more wobbling on the vortex here. It's not a big perfect circle, so the winds aren't perfectly going round and round, it's breaking up a little bit, but in the reliable time frame, it doesn't really do anything significant that would say that we're going to end up with what's called a stratospheric warming and a vortex split, which would in turn lead to potentially changes and a higher risk of colder weather at ground level. But you know, wherever this vortex shifts to in these lower levels is where is how it's going to affect at ground level. So if it shifts out here towards Asia slightly more, we get more of a northerly flow over the UK, and in turn that will start to influence the tropospheric winds, the winds down a lot lower, and possibly bring in some colder air. So it's a lot going on at the moment in the weather, a lot of things to keep an eye on, and a lot of things that we're trying to keep track of as well. So yes, just thought I'd give that a quick mention if you've heard anything about this, and that's what it is. So over the coming days, we're going to see mostly fine weather. There's going to be plenty of sunny spells around, a bit of cloud here and there. There's going to be frost at night, and after a slight breakdown later on Sunday towards Monday, it seems likely that the conditions will settle down once again. Perhaps a little bit more in the way of cloud at times, but also mostly dry weather, rather chilly weather, with temperatures varying between 4 and 5 degrees by day, but often falling below freezing at night, possibly down to into the minuses in a few places. So not a bad spell of weather coming up, and certainly making up for any lost sunshine and lost fine weather that what we've lost really through December and into the first part of January. So there you go. That's all for now. Come back over the next few days. We're going to have more updates as always, and we'll let you know how the fine weather is going to progress over the weekend and beyond. That's all for now. Goodbye.